Alright guys, this is 4.4, Applications of Linear Equations. So I gave you a little taste of that in the past. Hopefully this isn't too bad. But today we're talking about applications or word problems. Okay, so I'm going to be asking you to come up with equations, like linear equations, like y equals mx plus b, from a word problem, and then be able to use that to find information. Okay. So if you want to write a linear equation in slope-intercept form, what do you need? Well, you're going to need to find the slope, and you're going to need to find the y-intercept. Okay, so I'm just going to write m and b, right? Or you could say the y-intercept. Okay, so slope-intercept is y equals mx plus b, where this is the slope, and this is your y-intercept. All right, so things that we want to maybe highlight here is if you're trying to find the slope, you're going to want to look for words like rate of change. Per is a big one. Each, for every. Okay, so things that are telling you that they change over time. Usually slope, oftentimes we'll use something that has with time. Okay, like I get paid $10 per hour, or I sold 6 cookies each day, or something like that. So oftentimes we'll use time, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Okay, and then the y-intercept, you can usually find that if you're given some starting value or an initial value, like Bob has $10. Okay, it's not something that's going to change. Like that $10 doesn't tell you anything about changing. It's just what you start with. Or we had another word problem that was like, this person has 265 cookies and then sells after that point. Okay, so those are like initial values. Okay, so word problems. Here's our first example. So you plan to walk home from school, which is approximately 6 miles away. You walk approximately 3 miles per hour. So first off, we're going to want to figure out, what does x and y represent? If we're doing y equals mx plus b, what's y and what's x? What does it represent? Okay, so again, if time is involved, I didn't spell that involve, I spelled that really bad. Okay, involved, okay, that's x. Okay, so in this example we have miles per hour. So x is time in hours, and y, what do you think y could be? Well, y is miles. Spelled that wrong too. Okay, all right, so usually too, if we're talking about slope, we said slope is rise, which is your y, so your change of y. Maybe the better way to say that is, like, I don't know, well, we'll just say rise. That was like our y. And then our denominator is always our run, which is our x. So if you have your slope, miles, that's like your numerator. That's your rise. That's your y. Okay? Your hours is like your run. That's your x. Okay? So if you can find your slope, so your slope here is 3 miles per hour. Again, this is your y, that's your rise, this is your run. So that's just another way to kind of think of it, if that helps. And then initial value is your y-intercept, that's where you are at the start. Okay, we're 6 miles away. So here we could say 6. And then we want to talk about the slope. This is probably the thing that's a little tricky, is our slope positive or negative? If we start 6 miles away, are we getting closer or further away from our house? So since we're getting closer, our distance from home is getting smaller, so our slope here has to be negative. Okay? Alright, so now we'll write down our equation. So y equals negative 3x and then plus 6. So if you plugged 0 in, we would have 6 miles. If we plugged in 2 hours, we'd have 0 miles, would be home. Okay? So you can always kind of look at that, plug things in, and say, does that make sense? Are we getting closer to home as time goes on? Okay? Write down our x and y intercepts. Again, we know our y-intercept, it's just our b for y equals mx plus b. So here we got, what, 0, 6. And then our x-intercept, we need to set y equal to 0 and solve. So we'd say 0 is equal to negative 3x plus 6. Okay, we're wanting to know when do we reach home. So we'd subtract 6 and then divide by negative 3. And we'd get x equals 2. So that would be an ordered pair of 2, 0. And then one thing that's important that I'm going to ask you to do on a test is to say what that represents. So for the y-intercept, that's saying at time of 0, he's 6 miles from home. And then for this one, and we probably should use like a sentence, so we'll do a sentence here. This is saying after 2 hours, who are we talking about here? You are home. Or you could say you're 0 miles from home. Okay? So that make sure we explain what this means in context of the problem. And then the last thing, it will always be something like use your equation to figure out how, like for this example, how far will you be after walking an hour and a half. Okay? So again, we need to figure out which unit are we using. Is this our x or our y? So x is always time if time's involved. So then we'll use our equation. We'll do y equals negative 3 x. Well, x now is 1.5 and then plus 6. So we just need to evaluate, use our equation and evaluate. So this would give us what? Negative 4.5 plus 6, which is 1.5. So does that mean that we are 1.5 miles from home? Okay. So all your problems are about the same. They ask about the same thing. The only thing that's different is the situation. Okay. So let's do another example together. So as a babysitter, you're paid $5 per hour. Initially you have $15, and you save everything you earn for college. So first off, we want to talk about our units, what's being used. Okay, so it looks like we have dollars and we have hours. So just a reminder, if we have time, that's always that. X is always time if it's involved. And then dollars has got to be what's left. Okay, I don't think I ask you maybe to do that on the homework, but I think it's a good idea. Alright, so given the information, what is the slope? Okay, here's our key here is per, so $5 per hour. And then the y-intercept is the initial thing, so that's $15. Write our equation, so that's y equals mx plus b. And then we want to write down our y and x intercepts. So the y-intercept is the easy one, which would be 0, 15. Okay, that's saying that after, or initially would be a good way to say that, or when time is 0, she or he, I guess they, have $15. So that's what the y-intercept represents. And then for the x-intercept, again, we need to find that. We know, though, that y equals 0. So we'll set that up. 0 equals 5x plus 15. And then we'll subtract 15. And then we would divide both sides by 5. So here we get x equals negative 3. And then we'll write down our ordered pair. So it would be negative 3, 0. Okay, so here's a little star. What does that represent? So really this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Doesn't make sense. Why? Because time starts at 0. Okay, we can't go in negative time. No negative time. We don't know what happened before that point. We don't know that that linear equation applies after that. All we know is that she starts with 15 and it goes from there. So we don't really know what this is. We can't say that it has that same slope. We can't say that 3 hours ago she had 0 money, okay? Because she just started with that. Maybe somebody just gave her $15. Who knows, okay? So if you ever have negative time, it doesn't really make sense, and you can say that, okay? Last thing is we want to use our equation to figure out how long it would take her to save up $1,900. Okay, so here, dollars, what unit is dollars? Well, that's y. So we'll plug that in for y. So 1900 is equal to 5x plus 15. So basically you do the same steps that we did above. We would subtract 15, so 1885. And then we would need to divide both sides by 5. And what do you know? Again, I still don't have my calculator. Give me 1 sec. So I have 377. Sorry, I probably should zoom these in more for you when you watch those watch the video. Okay. What is that? Hours. Whew. So if you're gonna get paid $5 an hour, hopefully your babysitter pays you more. It would take you that many hours. If you divide that by 24, that would be like babysitting for 15, almost 16 straight days. Okay. All right, last one. I'll probably go through this one a little quicker. I also have it on your notes, so if you want to just grab it from there, you can too. So she's selling bread for extra money. She borrows $15. So here's kind of a key word is borrowed, to buy ingredients. And then she sells each loaf for $5. So $5 for every loaf. Okay. So we want to figure out the units. So it looks like we have units of bread and we have dollars. Okay. So we get, it's $5 per bread. So that might be helpful too. $5 per bread. Okay, so that would be like our slope. It's something that changes. She sells that bread. Okay, she's getting $5 extra every time. So here we have positive growth. She's gaining $5. Okay, she had to borrow $65, so she'd start with negative $5. She's in debt. Okay, and we still need to talk about what x and y represents. So in this situation, since our slope is rise over run, that would be our y over x's. Y is our rise, x is our run. So y has to be dollars, and x here has to represent bread. Okay. All right. So now we can write our equation. Y equals 5x minus 65. The y-intercept would be 0, 0, negative 65. That's saying that initially, initially she owes $65, or she's in debt. Okay, and then for the x-intercept, we know that y equals 0, so we'd set that equal to 0 and solve. So we would add 65 and divide by 5, and we'd evaluate that. Oh, sorry, I probably shouldn't do that. We'll just show our steps. That's what we should do, right? So then we get x equals 65 divided by 5 is 13. So it would be 13, 0. So what does that represent? Again, x represents bread. So after selling 13 loaves of bread, how much money does she have? Well, she has $0. So she breaks even. She breaks even. Okay? Alright, and then we're going to use that equation to find out how many loaves of bread Amy has to sell in order to earn $50. So again, dollars represents y. Okay? So we'll substitute that in. So 50 equals 5x minus 65. And then we'll solve. So add 65. So that would give us 115. And then we'll divide by 5. So 115 divided by 5 means she would need to sell 23 loaves to earn $50. Okay. All right. Let me know if you have questions. I know word problems aren't like most people's favorites, but you're more than welcome to stop in and get help if you need or have questions or what's being asked. Sometimes word problems aren't as clear as they should be. Okay? All right, we'll see you guys.